Welcome back to the Creative Web Development series for session 2, where we will be discussing HTML and CSS basics needed to build a website. So what is HTML and CSS? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. You can think of the language as the skeleton of a web page. It defines the structure and the content, like headings, paragraphs, images, and links. Without HTML and an HTML page, a web page cannot exist. CSS, on the other hand, stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It's used to design the structure of a website and is where the real creativity happens. It controls the colors, fonts, spacing, layout, and overall visual appearance of a website. CSS can also be applied to multiple elements at once using selectors or to individual elements using IDs, tags, or classes. So within HTML, there's many different tags, and they each correspond to a specific structure that we can use within our web pages. So some basic tags are headings, which has the tags of H1 to H6, and you can see it in this part of this photo right here. And then we have paragraphs, which has the P tag. We have a line break, and then there's also a horizontal line, which basically just has whatever text displayed horizontally. HTML tags also has tags for input types, so we can have input types of text, input type of password, and then we can also include buttons and other functions within our web pages to maintain navigation. Some other tags that can help organize HTML code is header, nav, main, article, and footer. These are really used to kind of organize what each part of your HTML code corresponds to, whether that's the very top, which is the header, or that's the nav bar, which basically is the section where you can navigate the different pages. Your main, that might be the main page, or the main, section of your web page. And then footer, we know, is like the bottom of a page. So HTML and CSS goes hand in hand. Once we have built an HTML file, we can style structures we built by identifying specific tags and then listing them out to attributes we want to add within our CSS file. For instance, if I create a paragraph text using P and I want all of my P tag text to be blue, then I would code this right here. So basically, in this section as well, I can do a text align, and I can have my text aligned to the center, left, or right. And this is kind of like the syntax, so you'd have like the specific attribute, a colon, and then the value of that attribute that you want to set, followed by a semicolon. Now we're going to do a live demo, and we're going to build a simple web page together using some of the tags we've seen in the previous slides, and also implementing some sort of like CSS style sheet. Okay, so once we open our OneCompiler platform, we are met with index.html file, which is going to serve as our home page. And then we also have a style sheet, which is currently empty. And then we have like some like starter code, which is tags. So this first line represents like what type of file it is. So we know that it's an HTML file, so this is just necessary in order to start it, as well as this tag as well. And notice how every opening tag is led by a closing tab, which shows that this is needed to kind of maintain consistency and make sure like our code is accurate. I'm gonna basically build a web page that builds off of our session 1 web development series, where we learned how to prototype a website in Figma. So I'm going to use that same kind of website, which was Eat New York City, and the website just gave like recommendations to different restaurants in New York City. So I'm going to kind of build a simpler version of that, within the One Copilot platform. It won't be as designed as it, given the time that we have, but you get to see kind of how like the inner workings of creating a web page can look like. So let's get started. So within our head tag, we should have like the title of our web page. So I'm going to create a title tag, and then within it I'm going to write Eat New York City, and then also within this, actually I'll call this like header, just so that it's a bit more accurate. So within our header tag, we're gonna have our title, and then we're gonna also have so this title is not gonna really show, so I'm gonna just do another header tag separately, so this actually shows on our website. This right here is gonna be a H1 tag, and then I'm gonna write Eat New York City. So this title is just the title of the website, and then here's what's gonna be outputted. So if we run this really quickly, we're just gonna see Eat New York City. And let's say I remove this, there's gonna be nothing. So let me put that back. So in our header as well, we're going to have our nav bars. So I'm gonna create a nav tag. So our nav bars should be like restaurants and maybe just home for now. So in order to create a link, we're gonna use this a tag, and then we're gonna do href, and then we're gonna set this equal to, I'll just call this like index.html, because this is what's gonna be pointing back to the home page, so that when you click the home page, you're gonna see what's shown in this file. And then we're gonna close this, and then we're gonna write what we want the text to basically display. So that's gonna be home. And then we're gonna do the same for, and this one we might call it restaurants.html, and then this is gonna have all the restaurants. Okay, so far we have our heading title, and then we have our nav bar, and then in our header, I believe that's all that we need. So let's just see what this runs. Okay, so right now we see that we have these two nav bars. So if I click home, if I do restaurants, it's not gonna show anything because we don't have a restaurants.html file. But if we click home, it'll just bring us back to this page. Okay, so outside of our header, we could also, oh, I forgot one important thing as well. So within our head tag, we also have to link the style sheet. So we're gonna have link, so it's gonna tell us like what type of link it is, so the style sheet, and then the link to that, it's gonna be our file styles.css, and then we're gonna close this out basically. Okay, let me just make sure everything's running well. Okay, so then after this, we're gonna create a main section. So this is just gonna include like our like welcome message, as well as like a quick blurb of what the website is about and things like that. So I'm gonna use something called a section ID to kind of section this part, and I'm just gonna call this like intro. So this section is going to be our intro, and then we're going to have our welcome text. So we're gonna use a heading 1. We're just gonna write welcome. Oh, forgot my quotations. Oh wait, actually you don't need quotations for H1. So we're gonna have welcome, and then we're gonna have a heading 3 tag to kind of write about like what the website is about. So I'll just write like explore New York City restaurants from categories of pizza. I'm gonna like put this here, pizza to bubble tea, and then oops, and then I'm gonna hit enter. So this is our, I'm gonna also add a class to this so that once I'm referencing it in my style sheet, I know exactly what part I'm referring to. I'm gonna call this, I'll just put explore for now. And then I'll also do, so we have, okay, let's see what this runs so far. Okay, so we have in New York City, our 2 nav bars, our welcome, and then our small text. I'm gonna actually add to this a little bit more because I feel like it's missing like something to it. Explore New York City, bubble tea. Explore New York City restaurant recommendations. Pizza to bubble tea. Okay. And then after this, I also want to include some sort of image within this. So I'm gonna also create within my section, I'm gonna also create a image. So I'm gonna call this image, then source is equal to, so I have some of my images uploaded here, so I'm just gonna copy this URL, and then I'm gonna have this be set to that URL basically. So the image source is equal to this right here, and then we're gonna also within this write our width, and we're gonna make it like 600 pixels. And then we're gonna close this out. Okay, let me just, okay, perfect. So image source. Okay, so let's see what that looks like right now. Okay, so we have welcome, explore New York City restaurant recommendation, categories, pizza to bubble tea, and then here's our image that we added in. Okay, and then now we're gonna also create another section, basically just detailing more about what the website entails and basically its purpose. So we're gonna have another section ID, and we're gonna call this like about, and we're gonna just gonna copy this. Okay, so here we're going to tab, so it's underneath our section ID about, and then we're going to have, I'll just do like kind of like a what to expect text, and then here I'll like write, wait, let me make these capital. Okay, so here I'm gonna write basically what the website is going to provide for different users. So I'll write restaurants across New York City. I'll just like find amazing restaurants across New York City that you can add to your bucket list. And I can say like, give a little bit of context about New York City. I'll hit enter on this so I could write a bit more. New York City is one of the most diverse cities across the world. So you can expect to find food from many diverse cultures. If you're a tourist or a native New Yorker, we will help you find the best places. My spelling is best places to find food. I will help you find the best places to eat. Okay, so this kind of gives a little bit about what Eat New York City goal is, and then okay, let's see what that runs. Okay, so right now this is how our website is looking like. Of course, it's very basic because we haven't used our style sheet yet, but let's add a little more. So after this main section, we're gonna also have our footer. So our footer is basically what goes at the end of the page. So we're gonna create our footer tag, and then within this, I'm gonna also create a div. So basically a div is just kind of like something that's used to divide space within our web page. So it kind of reserves like a certain section for certain content. So I'm gonna create a div, and for this ID, I'm just gonna call it footer info. And then let me put this together. So once we have that, we're gonna basically just have the name of our website in New York City at the bottom, and then after that we're gonna also create another div to just divide like the terms and services, or Instagram if we were to have one, and then like maybe location. Like that's usually what most web pages have for their footer. So I'm just using that even though it's not going to have any content within it. So I'm going to create this div. Actually, I'll just do, okay, and then I'm gonna have, I'll just make this like empty for now, and then I'm gonna have this be our Instagram if we were to have one, and then I'm gonna create one for terms and services as well. And then one last one for location. Okay. So after that, okay, so we just have like this again at the bottom. So right here is going to be our footer. And I'm gonna also do one last thing and also create, or sort of put all of this within our body. I'm just gonna create like a body tag so that we know this is all the content within our web page. I'm just gonna like tab all of this so that it looks more organized. Okay. So now we're gonna basically get into the style.css. So we're gonna kind of use this to style our web page. Okay, so under our body, so I want all of my text to be of like the same font. And if I want to ever like, I guess, override anything, I could just use like the IDs or classes that I've assigned to like each text. So I'm gonna start off with my body. So I'm gonna use body and just have like curly brackets. And then within it, I'm gonna create font. And then colon. And then I'm gonna use Times New Roman, and then okay, let's see what that runs so far. So changes our font to Times New Roman, and then I'm gonna have font size be like 18 pixels. So notice like how this is kind of like the type of attribute, and then this is like the value, and it's followed by a semicolon. I'm gonna also change like this background. I don't want to use white, so I'm gonna create like a background color. So I'm just gonna do background, and then I'm gonna use the tag FEFE. So that corresponds to like this color. It's like a off-whitish, like it's not completely white, but it's like similar to the white that we had before. And then we're gonna also do something called an overflow -x, so that we're making sure like we're staying within our borders of our web page, so we can't like explore to like the left. Like it basically gives like a limit to like how left you can scroll and how right you can scroll, and kind of maintains the web page structure. So I'm gonna write hidden here so that it doesn't overflow to the left or the right or up or down as well. And then have display block, So this is just gonna display it into like a certain like section of our website, and it's gonna just display it as like a block of like information rather than having it separate. And then after this, we're gonna edit our H1 tags and then our H3 tags. So H1, so you can edit multiple things under one container if you just use like a comma using the tags. So I just want this to display inline block. So that it's like all in one line. Okay, so this is how our thing looks so far. And then we're gonna also have sort of margins because we want to make sure like it's not too spaced. I mean, it's not too like close to each other. So I'm gonna have a margin of 10 pixels. So a margin just kind of creates that space around. So if you see like we have a margin of 10 pixels, that's why like this isn't like all the way to the left anymore. And there's like 10 pixels to the right as well as like on the side too. The margin is 10. Okay, then after that, we're gonna also edit our header. So just to kind of remind you guys, like if you go back here, this is our header, so we're editing everything that's under here, basically. So in our header, we're gonna align all of our text to the center. And then also we're going to have another margin, but this side just on the left. And we're gonna do like 10 pixels. And then we're gonna do the same thing for the right. So if we see that, we kind of see that it's now in the middle, and then our nav bar is also in the middle as well. Okay. So then after that, we're gonna also make like this section right here. We're gonna make it black. And we're gonna also, since we're gonna make it black, we're gonna update this H1 and H3 to be white, I believe. Let's see how that will look actually. I think here we can just write white. Okay, so now we see like this kind of disappeared. If we were to remove it, okay, so for our header, we're going to have background be black, and then our header height, so like once this is black, but let me just show you guys how it'll look. So we just have it black right here. So we want to make it a bit more longer, so we're gonna have the height be equal to like 100 pixels. Once we run that, you see that it grows a little bit more. And then we're gonna have the position of this nav bar to be sticky, so that once we're basically like scrolling through, once we scroll through the page, we want to continuously see our header and our nav bar. So this is gonna be sticky. Why did this not position sticky? Let me see if that works. I mean, we can't really scroll yet, so honestly don't feel like this is necessary, but we can add it back if necessary. And then we're gonna also have our header, because we want this to show this New York City right here. So if we go back, this is under our H1, so we could just do header H1. Give use this. So we're gonna display this in line block, and then we're gonna also change this color to be white so that we can see it. And then the text is already line center. Let's see, this one is okay. So now we see that our text is white. Okay, so now we're going to basically go on to our next part where we edit our image as well so that it could appear a bit more visually appealing. So we're gonna have image, and then we're gonna display this inline block as well. And then let's just see what that, oops. Let's just see what that runs. Okay. So this is inline block. Now we see the welcome is on top of that. So we're gonna try to bring this also like to the right here, hopefully. Okay. So display inline block. And then we also have overflow. It's also hidden. And then we're gonna also do the border radius to be 5 pixels. So this border radius is just gonna make this a bit more like rounder. So we see now it's a bit more round. Honestly, I want to make it like 10. Okay. Actually, let's do 8. Okay, let me just give a bit more space to everything else. And then now we're going to basically edit our nav bar so that this kind of looks a bit more visually appealing. I feel like the black and the blue kind of clashes. So we're gonna do nav, and then we're gonna also have this displayed in line block so that we know that like everything is like within the same line. And I want to kind of bring this to like this side right here, right in 3 pixels. I also have this like float to the right. Position is going to be absolute so it doesn't move. And then lastly, we're going to have some sort of like margin at the bottom. This is going to be like 15 pixels. Okay, this, let me change this. I think it's kind of getting confused. Okay, let's do a bottom. It's too high right now. Let me do display block. Let me see what sort of inline. Okay, that looks a bit better. I kind of want to give space to this, to the letters, because I feel like it's a bit too close. When your letter spacing, do like 2 pixels. Okay, that's a bit too much. I'll just do 1 pixel. Honestly, I feel like this is fine. Okay, and then now let me see header. Do top as 0, and then bottom. Just do all of them 0, so that it's like fitting within the context. Let me show you. Okay, and then I'm gonna basically do a tag, which is basically referencing the links. So this is also, I don't need to keep doing display inline block. I can just basically just have like a margin, right, so that it's not to the right. Let me see, actually I think the margin is fine. You can have, I'm gonna change this color to be more like visually appealing. I'm gonna make it yellow. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that's fine. I don't really like how this text right here is like floating up. Header 1, I'll do margin to like 15 pixels, and then text align center. Okay, let me do margin top. Like 20 pixels. I do like 25. So notice how it's like going a bit more down. And honestly, I kind of want to make this height a bit bigger. Do like 110. Okay. Okay, so our website's kind of coming together. So after this, we're going to basically have we're gonna do like a font weight. We're gonna make it a bit more bold. And then we're gonna also have for our about section, our intro section, as well as our footer. So as you can see, so we've added a line for our about, and we aligned it to the left. I'm gonna actually do a margin here to be like 15 pixels, just so that it's not all the way to the left. We also updated our intro heading 1. If you go back, our intros here, heading 1 is welcome. So we've added color to that, and we've also aligned it to be in the center, gave a margin top, so that's kind of away from like the header part where the nav bar and title is, and edited the H3 tag as well to kind of match with the other part of intro. And then lastly, footer, we gave it a black background, and we also kind of just matched it with the header so that can be a bit more consistent. So if we run this, we can see our home page. Run it one more time so I can scroll. So this is it, and if you click on home, then we go back to home. Yeah, this is a simple web page so far. There's definitely so much more to learn within CSS as well as HTML. So definitely explore around, learn new things, try new things, try possibly new attributes that I didn't use. For instance, we could also, there's something called like a hover effect where like if I hover over this, like I can possibly change the color or add some sort of animation. There's really a lot you can do with CSS and HTML, and this is only the start. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching our web development series.